On Monday, Myanmar's former leader Aung San Suu Kyi went on trial in Naypyidaw before the Tatmadaw military junta that ousted her government in a coup in February. The military seized power after claiming Suu Kyi's election victory last November was fraudulent, contradicting international election monitors. Suu Kyi stands accused of corruption and breaking coronavirus restrictions, a charge that has been levied against political opponents by authoritarian regimes in order to silence opposition. Although Suu Kyi will be tried in court for various crimes, her supporters believe the trial is politically motivated and will almost certainly return guilty verdicts.
They say they had no choice but to take to the streets in support of democracy and against what they see as injustice.
After months of deadly protests, with over 800 reported civilian casualties, Suu Kyi's expected convictions will likely incite further demonstrations in weeks to come, inevitably followed by state police crackdown. The international community is likely to overwhelmingly oppose the Tatmadaw, as its leaders have demonstrated intransigence towards de-escalation in cooperation with regional bodies like ASEAN. US President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin met in Geneva on Wednesday, their first meeting since Biden took office. Tensions between the US and Russia surged this year following Russian-based cyber attacks on US infrastructure, Russian imprisonment of opposition leader Alexei Navalny, and military escalation on the Ukrainian border. Biden's rhetoric painted Russia as not solely a regional power, but as a full-fledged superpower that America must reckon with. The two leaders' mutual willingness to engage in high-level bilateral negotiations could produce a more restrained Putin, at least in the short term. However, Biden neglected to pressure Putin on contentious issues such as Navalny's imprisonment and the larger issue of human rights.
But given his past behavior has not changed, and in that press conference after sitting down with you for several hours, he denied any involvement in cyber attacks, he downplayed human rights abuses, he even refused to say Alexei Navalny's name. So how does that account to a constructive meeting as President Putin?
You don't understand that, you're in the wrong business.
If the summit with
However, the leaders agreed on the return of respective ambassadors and to investigate the growing issue of cyber attacks. Ultimately, the summit ended with a positive outlook for improved relations, but absent of any major breakthroughs. Iran held a presidential election on Friday in which Ibrahim Raisi won 14.5 million more votes than the runner-up and will succeed moderate President Hassan Rouhani, who has been in power since 2013. Raisi, a far-right judiciary chief, won an election that saw most of his political opponents barred from running and low voter turnout. Tensions escalated between Iran and the West when the American and Israeli forces were accused of assassinating a key scientist and attacking Iranian nuclear plants. However, the new president has said he hopes to return to the 2015 nuclear deal to relieve crippling U.S. economic sanctions.
Now, Raisi does support the Iranian nuclear deal that President Biden is trying to revive, but if this hardliner is elected, it could make it more difficult to get a tougher and longer deal, which could slow everything down.
In the long term, Raisi's hardline nationalism will likely hinder further American diplomatic attempts to restrain Iran's enrichment of uranium, which is currently the closest the Islamic Republic has been to weapons grade.